Hey guys, Tech here. I know I'm a little late in this, but I'm bringing you the Anvil Carrack video from CitizenCon 2949. This is a great panel, and it shows how the ship started from concept all the way to where we are today. I know a lot of citizens are a bit disappointed, but I myself am happy to have the ship I backed for when I started to believe in the game. I hope what they say in this panel will ease your pain a little bit, but I know we're finally striving for a better verse for everybody. Enjoy the video, and hope you check out my stream, mixer.com/technical. Check out my Twitter, twitter.com/technicalx. See you then.
Hi.
Howdy.
Let's talk about some ships.
Woo.
I'm John Crew, for those of you that don't know me, or harass me from YouTube comments.
I'm Stephen Hosmer.
And I'm Paul Jones.
We know who the fan favorite is then.
Pardon?
You're the fan favorite then.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to talk about quite a few ships today. Going to talk about 2 you know about, 2 you don't know about, and then a few more. So let's talk about things you do know about. So we'll start with the Anvil Carrack. Knew there was going to be one. So, obviously a very popular ship. I hope you all liked seeing it earlier, but let's just go back in time to the original origin story of it. Just trying to work out where I can actually see the thing by me. There it is. So it was one of the original crowdfunding goals. It's ex-military design, but released as surplus civilian stock. Comes with everything in the kitchen sink that you need for long-term exploration. It's got medical facilities, repair room, garage and hangar, charting and sensor suites, lots of fuel, and the modular storage cargo pods at the bottom.
So it was introduced as part of the crowdfunding, one of the original stretch goals, in November of 2014, which was about 5 years ago. So it's been a while. We introduced it with a little choose-your-own-adventure mini-game on the website. And here's a couple of stats about that. It was about like 28 pages long, something like that, 26. And about 300, what was it?
300 different options.
Options,
go
yeah.
through, so.
300 little options.
How many people can remember that and went through that?
Wow.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Did anyone do all 300?
So you guys will be familiar with some of these concepts done way back in the day. Obviously, this was before we sort of had all our metrics worked out. So, we were building cool stuff. But there was a lot of things with the ship that we wanted to improve on. So looking at, we look at this slide here, and there's things like the landing gear and the height of the ship, to name a few in this shot. So basically, we're just going to run through a couple of images here and just sort of point out the things that we have tackled just recently. The Carrack came with a shutter system, and also that causes a few problems. So we've spent some time looking at that, and we'll show that in a little bit. We've also sort of taken a look at the back end, did a little bit of sort of styling and sort of unification, because obviously we're a little further along in the games. We're a couple more years further on, so we've got style guides now which help. And you can see here from the interior, it was a cool interior, and we've kept a lot of stuff, but it still didn't really sort of speak of that Anvil flavor, which has been sort of developed with the Valkyrie.
Terrapin.
Thank you, help me out there. So yeah, we've spent quite a bit of time just sort of tweaking it and working with with design and with the art team.
So that's the past, the very far past. Let's go slightly closer to the current day. So how do we get from those concept images to what you saw earlier today? So the first task was to actually do a full interior white box blockout, blocking in all the features that we'd promised with this, using all our metrics, that meant the ship got quite big. So it got to 170 meters, which at the time, so sure, Foundry making ships big.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
So we'll just go through some of these. So this was the original layout of the bottom deck. Going up through the ship, you see the front is quite packed with things, but there's a lot of space in there. Then there's back in engineering, and then the observation deck. Not me personally.
Took me ages to put that together.
So there's quite a few downsides with making the ship just bigger for the sake of making it bigger. So we decided to try and get it back to actually the original size it was at concept, which was 123 meters.
Yeah, if we kept it that size, it wouldn't be able to fit on the large pads that we have, and it would only be able to spawn it where you could spawn like an 890 or a Reclaimer, so we didn't really want to do that.
So yeah, all those 890 and Reclaimer owners that know the pain of having to travel somewhere to spawn their ship, Carrack owners would have had the same pain if we'd kept it like that. So we kept all the features. We just sort of shrunk them down a little bit and took out the corridor space between every single room. So as you can see, it's pretty similar. There's just no dead space between all the rooms now. Once we'd done a white box interior, though, there was still a lot of the interior that we had no idea what it was going to look like.
And this hasn't really sort of followed on a sort of normal process. You guys are aware, sort of, with our latest ships, we are now sort of working towards getting the ships a lot closer to what they should be, so that by the time they get into the game, there should be less changes, less disappointments. And so basically, the ship team was already a good probably like 50% of the way through this ship. And as you guys know, I normally sort of work with the concept team, and we're working on other ships, and then a couple of requests start coming in. Oh, we need a little bit of help on this, and we need a little bit of help on that. So what you're going to see is sort of more sort of behind the scenes sort of stuff that we generally don't show. It's pretty raw, it's pretty unpolished. You get to see some of my really quick, rough stuff.
There's a lot of caveats in this.
Yeah, there is a lot of caveats. But overall, you'll get a bit of an insight into the general process. So here, I think we've got a caveat on here. This is a really quick. We're sort of experimenting with different ways of looking at the shutter system. Something that's, thank you. Like I said, it is on the slide there. It is a temp animation that I sort of quickly bashed out just to sort of as a proof of concept. You can see there that it's the old sort of original glass and the sort of structure for the shutters. So this was more about just the large shapes and how they might fold back and kind of be optimal as well for the engine.
The original concept was like a roller garage door that went over it, and that's quite expensive in game because each one of those links has to be a bone. So you end up with a huge amount of bones to animate, and also just the mechanics of getting them down the struts and folding around all the shapes on such a small angular piece is incredibly hard.
Yeah, so there's definitely more work to do with this. Obviously, that's just the top section. We've got the bottom section to do, but these are all the sort of things that we'll give to the ship team and be like, well, we're kind of thinking like this. So we don't work out exactly everything, and it still gives the artists and the animators just a little bit of creative freedom to sort of work out some more of the extra stuff. And so you guys will be familiar with this front end. And there's a lot of stuff in here that isn't what we'd class as Anvil anymore. Some of the shape language, especially at the front, with the curved. And I know you guys are you're big fans of struts. So I put this together. I thought you might like this. But joking aside. And as you will have seen in today's demo already, it's going to something a lot cleaner, basically. So the visibility is much better.
We actually, you can't see it in this image, but if you looked carefully at the demo earlier, there is a hexagonal pane of front glass rather than curved edges, so then that...
Yeah,
that
so
keeps
it's just
down.
harking back to the... It was even on the blister as well, just that shape.
Mhm.
And so we've, you can see here, so we're working on the exterior, and the art team was struggling a little bit with some of the information. You know, they were sort of essentially trying to redesign on the hoof and just sort of figure it out. And generally, sort of, you can lose quite a lot of time on that. So basically, the internal team jumped on this, and it's just reunifying the ships. You know, you've got the familiar Anvil circle that's in everything, and just sort of making that flow into the back of the ship, and generally just look a little more integrated. And same with this shot here. You can see I've literally pulled this off my PC. It's got all the sort of squiggles and drawings on it that we do on the real-time board, and this is really more just the front end, just sort of showing. It was more of a cleaning up process on the original sort of Carrack. There was a lot of what we call polygon cuts. So, you know, you select just a couple of polygons and you do an extrusion or a bevel, but it doesn't really make sense. We generally push the ships a lot more towards reality now. If this is a line or a cut or a panel change, it's there for a reason.
If you look at certain space films that are popular, they do a lot of that to just add noisy detail on their ships that don't actually do anything or have any purpose, but it looks cool, but it's pretty useless.
Yeah, so there's just a general sort of clear up of those lines from the front, and just working with the Anvil style, bringing it into the front. The same with the underside there. It was a little bit noisy. It's sort of, you know, when you have it in engine, it can often read, especially that front ramp that was all separated. And we also spent some time on the pods because those are changed, right?
Yeah, they are different from the concept, but we'll talk about those.
And then also, those of you who will be familiar with this is the back end. And generally, most of the Anvil ships now have sort of exposed or partially exposed engines. And it was just a matter of working on that back end and just bringing everything into line. So you really, when you look at this ship now, you're like, oh, okay, it's Anvil. And when you see it next to its brothers and sisters, you can really see that DNA that's in these ships. So we did work on the interiors as well. It wasn't just the exterior. And again, some less polished stuff than you're normally used to seeing. In terms of corridors, there was a lot of, different shapes going on in the corridors.
There was a lot of artists working on this at various points, and whilst they all had the same sort of shape language, everyone's definition of this hexagon was slightly different. So every deck you went on, there was a slightly different angle between them. So it's just bringing
the pods. This is what's this area? This is the escape pods.
Escape pods behind the bridge.
And so there was quite a few sort of style things that were off topic. So again, it's just bringing it into line, just making it clearer, simpler palette, and really it's just about making it clear where you are. This is the gravity generator. I always forget this. Where's this looking out to?
Engine room. It looks down on the engine room.
Right, okay. So again, quick pass, just some line work, just a little bit of decals, just to give the team a little bit more of a direction, just to keep things unified. This is the cartography room. This is something we threw together some ideas. Ultimately, Nate wanted to just keep with the central
big
holographic
star map.
Yeah, star map. I mean, I did like those screens and everything. It makes it cool, but also it's also quite confusing because ultimately you want to see what's on the star map, don't you? It's not just the rule of cool. And then with the in the hangar, this was basically again just unifying the colors, keeping with the simple palette, and just basically putting on a little bit of red marking just to really make it clear. Okay, you're going out into a hard vacuum if you go out of this space. And again, just simple line work, some splashes of color, and this is the repair room.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What are we repairing in here?
All sorts of stuff.
All sorts of stuff. All right. And also the medical room, we've shown quite a bit of this on and off.
Yeah, we've shown it on various things. If you remember, the scanner machine in the middle is sort of exposed, but
it was kind of open to everybody, wasn't it? So even if you were a patient, you were probably getting irradiated by whatever's coming out of the scanner. So we've kind of just put it behind glass. And the two doors to the side are just a sort of either the operator's room or a storeroom, I believe it is. And again, just a little bit of work on there. It's all very functional. It's nothing wow. So it's not something we'd normally release, but it's just all to keep the guys going and keep the vision intact.
Cool. So let's have a look where we are today, with an immediate swerve to something really far in the past. So this was the original concept bridge with this table, which is a hollow table like a lot of the other ships. Yep. So we started off here, then we changed it to a holosphere that spread across both decks, and we're like, that's not quite right. So we sort of have combined both into a holosphere and a hollow table. So it's circular, it projects a sphere, it will project all sorts of things to give the same impact. Other big changes on the bridge, the concept had a spiral staircase from the lower deck to the upper deck, but that's now an elevator. That's purely for metrics reasons. The space needed for our characters to traverse up a spiral staircase would have pretty much taken up that entire gap between those two seats. And again, if we wanted to keep it, ship needs to get bigger, wider, we go back round in circles again. Cargo pods, we talked about briefly. So these have had some big changes. They're still swappable, so the default version is going to come with these cargo pods in particular, but down the line we're going to let you swap them out for other types of cargo pods, other types of modules that will go into some point in the future.
Yeah, they're similarly designed to the ones on the Caterpillar, so it's got that gantry up top, and then we also made it so the sides will open up so that you can access space or the outside from them.
Yeah, the original concepts had the openings to the outside beyond the faces that connect in between them, which is great when they're on the ground, but completely useless in space. So whilst these are recessed inside the ship, they do double clamshell open, so the bottom can open and then you can access these whilst in space or flying or do things like people do in the Caterpillar and shoot out of them.
Yeah.
Next up, turrets. So it had 4 turrets in the original spec. It's still got 4 turrets. They've got the same sort of guns on them. The sideball turrets are manned. We did quite a lot of work on those. And the top turret is now remote. The bottom is manned. Again, that was a change due to the layout of the ship. If we'd kept the top turret manned, there would have been this just entrance point randomly in the middle of a corridor. So making that remote frees up that space. And then the manned turret is accessible from the main elevator shaft that goes up and down the ship.
And here we're showing off a little bit of a video where we've made the turrets on the side to be like the hammerhead turrets so that you get this greater degree of control and angle.
We wanted to keep the aesthetic of the original concept turrets, but without this, they would have moved about 10 degrees in the other direction, which is
this is a nice
suboptimal.
Nice solution.
Plus, you've got those size 4 guns on there,
Yeah,
which
they're big guns now.
pretty decent.
So this is the top turret that's now remote. Again, packing size 4 guns. Moving through the interior, habitation, we saw that earlier. So it's an ex-military ship, so it shares its habitation areas with the crew. Captain has his own captain's quarters, which I can confirm doesn't have a huge bathroom. It's the bedroom's a bit bigger, the bathroom's a bit smaller.
Yeah,
the desk and room for shouting at subordinates is equally sized. We've got the hexagonal pool table that you saw earlier.
And this is, there's a nice contrast here. We're sort of moving to the softer, warmer lighting. This is habitation, right? You're going from the sort of almost scientific exploration part of the ships, the dark greys. But then when you go into habitation, you want something a little lighter, something a little less oppressive. You've got the familiar Anvil shapes in there, and it should be in quite a nice area just to sort of maneuver around.
It's got a different aesthetic, like you say. It's very white, creamy, light grey
Yeah,
versus the harsh dark grey of the rest of the ship.
Yeah. It's the grays we were talking about.
Yep. It's the drone room, which we sort of briefly whisked past in the demo earlier today. So we have 4 drones for the ship, and there's 2 drone operators. You can see one, which is the sort of lit area at the back, and there's one behind where the camera is. And I'm going to make full use of there being a laser pointer on the desk. That if Steve wants to talk about where they go.
There's the track on the top so that they slide out, and then you can also repair them in that section over there. Yeah, and then they also slide down, and they can be deployed from there.
So this is a sealed unit here
Yeah.
that they come into and go 90 degrees, and they go launched out into space. They recovered the same way. It's sealed, so you don't vent this room, which is where you're sat operating them, which would be a very bad time for all involved. Engineering, which got an unexpected cheer when we were going through the demo earlier. It's just a very cool looking room.
Yeah, it's always like a bit of a hero room, the engineering rooms. I mean,
big steaming, dark.
You kind of want it to feel special.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the gravity generator's up there a little bit.
So that's actually where that window of the gravity generator room looks out of.
Yeah.
Biggest change is the landing gear from what we had at the start. This is what you've changed on here, so I don't know what's going to happen now when I press this button.
It's you will have to click it, and
Okay.
then it will animate it. But yeah, you guys will know we went through. At least it should work. There we go. We went through several options. Obviously, we've seen the long-legged version. Then we had do we have the sausage dog version? Looks like maybe that got taken out. With the little legs.
We'll not remember the sausage dog version. Forget that from history.
I don't know. I like Dachshund, so that was my favorite.
But I think this is the best. This is a really nice solution.
Yeah, gives a really nice silhouette. We don't tend to do a lot of 3 points of contact landing gears on big ships, just because they're so big. But this is a really big triangular sort of footprint, so works well for this.
Yep.
Then the question everybody wants to know, which hopefully you've all heard by now, is February next year. The reason it's not coming out in 3A is we just needed more time on it, and we didn't want to release a half-finished ship, especially one as anticipated as this. I hope you'll all agree that that would be not the ideal outcome of just waiting so long for such an important ship and then finding a few of the rooms were not there. So